Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Christchurch Daily. It's just a little thought for the day to help us keep fixed on Jesus in the midst of what's going on. So, I think at the moment I've had lots of conversations with people about what the long-term effects of COVID-19 is going to be on society. And I recognise that there are some really serious negative consequences to everything that is happening. And again, I'm not on the front line, and so it's quite easy to sit inside my house and say these things. But I hope that that something good will come out of it too. In one of the most famous stories of the Old Testament, Joseph, aka Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, forgives his brothers even though they have really seriously wronged him. And at the end of the story, there's this beautiful moment of reconciliation where Joseph's brothers come to him and he forgives them, and he says to them that what they meant for evil, God has turned it into good. And I just wonder, what is God working for good in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic? The final section of Paul's letter to the Philippians gives a little snapshot of the relationship between Paul and this tiny church in Philippi that he's writing to. And he says, "I rejoiced greatly in the Lord that at last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it." And that's from Philippians, still chapter 4, verse 11. So Paul's imprisonment affords the Philippians a chance to bless him. Part of Paul's reason for writing the letter is to thank the church in Philippi for this gift that they've sent him, which we think is some kind of financial provision, because at the moment Paul is under house arrest, probably in Rome. And the Roman prison system didn't provide for prisoners in the same way that our system does. So prisoners were dependent on their family and their friends to send them either food, clothes, or the money to buy those things for themselves. And the Philippian church are responsible for meeting Paul's basic needs when he can't meet those needs for himself. The language that Paul uses in this little verse is he says that they've renewed their concern for him. Apparently, I don't actually know Greek, but I really like words, so I quite often look up what the Greek word is in the New Testament, because it was originally written in Greek. So apparently the Greek word here for concern is quite tricky to translate, because it's often related to sort of thinking rather than caring. But here in this passage, it's translated as concern, as like an action. And I read this really helpful commentary, and it said that essentially what this concern equates to is personal opinion fleshing itself out in action. And I just love that so much, that the idea that the Philippians have been thinking about Paul. That's their opinion, it's in their head. They've been thinking about what's going on for him, but they don't just let that thought stay in their head, but they turn it into action. That thought is fleshed out into a concrete action, and they provide him with food and with money. Now, I've seen so much of this in recent weeks, in amongst the fear and the panic and the anxiety and the stockpiling, lots of stockpiling. There are so many people who are fleshing out what's going on in their head into action, into something positive. There are so many people who are demonstrating love and concern and care for others, even when it's really costly for them and it's a sacrifice. So just this week, we've been self-isolating with the girls. I know everyone's under lockdown now, so it's kind of changed the ballpark a little bit, but we found it quite hard being at home with our children and trying to explain to them why we can't go out. They both had a cough and they're fine now, but we're still trying to follow the guidelines. And it has been amazing, actually, to see our community express their concern for us. So we've had phone calls and messages. We've had cakes that have been delivered for our window. And we've had this massive box of craft activities and some compost left on our doorstep so that we can entertain our children when we can't leave the house. So concern for us as a family has been abundant, and we're really, really grateful. So thank you to everybody that has been concerned about us. And we're grateful that, just like Paul, that other people have not just thought about us, although that's nice too, but they have practically done something with that thinking, and they've turned that thought into a reality. So I just want to pose the question today, really, of what if part of the good that God is doing in our society at this moment is in the way that we think of and treat one another? Is in neighbours who have never really spoken to each other before suddenly wanting to have conversation, offering to do one another's shopping, checking in to see if other people are okay. It's in grandchildren who are taking the time to paint pictures for their elderly relatives. It's in stopping to chat respectfully, the social distancing thing, but stopping to chat and engaging with people on the street instead of being so busy and so consumed by our own lives that we don't bother. Is in appreciating our National Health Service instead of complaining about how long we've been waiting on the doctor's surgery. So I think there's a challenge here for us in what's going on today. I think there's a challenge to renew our concern, to get thinking, to get creative, to ask God who it is that needs help and to help them. So the King James translation of this verse is really beautiful, and it says, "Now at the last your care of me hath flourished again." So here's to being members of a society where the care that we have for each other is flourishing again. And if you're a Christian today and you're following Jesus, then I just suggest that at the end of this video, just spend 5 minutes, sit down, pray, and ask God, who is the person that you can practically express concern for today? And what does that look like? Thanks. See you later.